There's something about isolation that makes humanity's truest colors reveal themselves. There's something about being by yourself or within close proximity to a certain amount of people that makes it such that you shred any sense of civility. What happens when facades are broken? Well, hopefully we'll try to figure out that today. As today we'll be talking about everything the thing. Thing. Thingy thing. Something. Everything. Lots of things. A thing. That was very awkward. Yeah, so we'll be starting with the John W. Campbell novel, Who Goes There, and ending off with 2011's The Thing. Not to be confused with 1982's Thing. Remake. Thing. The main focus of why I wanted to do this video is to get at why we still tell this story many times over the past 80 years. And hopefully, I hope that you guys get some more insight and understand more about what makes it such a significant work. A lot of other discussions about the thing on YouTube and online tends to be more about technical aspects of the thing, about its practical effects or the monsters or something like that. But I really want to get at why it's such an enduring story and why we'll continue to tell the story of the thing in the future. So, spoilers for all the media talked about in this video, but I do think that you could still enjoy all the media talked about in this video to the full extent. If you've seen one of them, pretty much you've seen them all, but I think that there's unique aspects of each of them that make them interesting to visit. So that's what I'll be talking about today. I hope you enjoy this video because I totally enjoyed making it. Thank you.
John W. Campbell is probably one of the most influential science fiction authors who played a huge part in what is considered to be the golden age of science fiction, 1938 to 1946. Campbell will later go on to edit the magazine Astounding Science Fiction from 1937 to his death in 1971. Here he published and helped start the career of many science fiction authors, most notably Isaac Asimov. Asimov would later say of Campbell that he was the most powerful force in science fiction ever. In 1938, John W. Campbell, under a pseudonym, released the science fiction novella Who Goes There in the pages of Astounding Fiction, a year before Germany invaded Poland, causing World War II. The plot would feel very familiar to anyone who had seen any other thing-related material. A bunch of science researchers come upon an alien spaceship buried in ice. They accidentally destroy the ship, but recover the alien trapped inside a block of ice. The thing eventually escapes, and then everyone finds out when they find it trying to morph into a dog. And the rest of the novella is more or less The Thing, the 1982 movie. Paranoia gets set upon a camp as no one knows who to trust. Actually, another element of distrust gets added upon in this version as it gets hypothesized that not only is the monster telepathic, but it also can plant thoughts in your mind. So you can't even trust your own thoughts. The book feels very Lovecraftian in nature. A great sense of paranoia comes from the story. Not only do you not know who to trust in this story, but you don't even know if you can trust yourself. The very being of humanity is put into question. If you become the thing, could you even know? Existential dread fills the novella. Who Goes There becomes Who Am I? Probably my favorite part of the novella is its version of the blood test scene.
The Tensity was released in a second. Whatever of hell the monsters may have had within them, the men that instantly matched it. Barclay had no chance to move his weapon, as a score of men poured down on the thing that had seemed Dutton. It mewed and spat and tried to grow fangs and was 100 broken, torn pieces. Without knives or any weapon, save the brute strength of a staff of picked men, the thing was crushed, rent. Slowly they picked themselves up, their eyes smoldering, very quiet in their motions. A curious wrinkling of their lips betrayed a species of nervousness.
There's implication that there's way more people involved with this one, as it's a proper base, around, 37 people. And as they slowly move from person to person in this version of the blood test, they would reveal that a person is the thing. 14 people would eventually be revealed as things, and when each one was revealed, all the men would descend upon that person and kill them with their bare hands. The men actually seemed to get some enjoyment out of it, grinning while disposing of their former brethren.
I think this version has the best idea of the loss of self that happens, that humanity needs to trust each other. The novella actually ends off on a very positive note. It's what makes it very unique to a lot of the other Thing media. It's written very awkwardly. It's not as good as a lot of people let on it to be. It's decent. Even though it has this legendary status, I think a lot of that happens to be due to its dated language, but it is a nice quick read. I have to give it that. And so if you really want to see where this franchise started, and it feels really weird saying that it's a franchise, but it essentially is, then go ahead and give this a whirl. Oh, okay, surprise. Turns out that there's breaking news on this story. Actually, who knew that there would be a breaking news on this? Turns out Who Goes There is actually a abridged version of Frozen Hell. John W. Campbell's original manuscript was recently found by a biographer who was trying to do some research on the golden age of science fiction, and he found the original manuscript, and now they're trying to get that published. So if you're really interested in it, I guess this video is no longer Everything the Thing, but as of right now it is. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that, but links down in the description. They already met the goal, but if you want to pick up a copy, I'd highly recommend it, because I'm really interested in seeing what the original work is. Might fix some of the problems that I've had with it. Who knows? Okay. Anyways, carry on.
So, it's hard for me to find information on the production of this movie. Actually, people aren't really too sure who directed the film itself. Film legend Howard Hawks' fingerprints are all over this movie. The movie is literally billed as Howard Hawks' Thing from Another World, with a directing credit from Christian Nyby. It was Christian's first film, him being Hawks' editor on some of his previous works. Actually, some of the speculation is that Hawks gave Christian the credit so that Christian could get into the Directors League. But basically, many of the casts disagree on who contributed to what. But as of right now, the American Film Institute has put both Hawks and Nyby as directors for this film. In researching this video, I tried really hard to find out how Hawks got his hands on Who Goes There. I really want to know why they went from this shape-shifting monster to a super carrot monster man?
An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
And Campbell was alive at the time, but I couldn't find any information of whether he liked it or not. Maybe it's out there and I couldn't find it. So if anyone knows, do put a link down in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. The movie is copyrighted as The Thing, even though the title screen and the poster say The Thing from Another World. So that's another thing. A third thing, so to say. This is the first Thing movie. There's there's 3 Thing movies, apparently. I was really surprised by this movie. When doing research for this video, I've seen many people describe it as a cheesy or a B movie. But what many people don't realize is that this was one of the most popular movies of the year that it came out, outselling The Day the Earth Stood Still. This was Howard Hawks coming off of classic movies such as the noir film The Big Sleep. This movie really stands out from the rest of his resume. It's the only monster movie he's done. But seriously, this film does not get the credit it deserves. Of course, it gets really expository because at the time you had to explain a lot to the audience. When the movie starts, it has some moments that chill to this day. Shots of the monster silhouetted or on fire are seared into my brain. It's just a really well-made movie for the time, and that I think should get more attention.
People like to criticize our generation for being too soft, but The thing is, like, your grandparents who were scared of some guy in a rubber suit walking very slowly at them. But here the guy in the rubber suit stands for something. It stands for, well, science run amok. The scientists in this movie are not to be trusted. They want to study the thing. They want to work with it. Even though its wholly destructive capabilities have been noticed, it's done nothing but destroy. I can't think of another better metaphor for the atomic bomb. A lot of science fiction from that time was dealing with the fallout of World War II, with the atomic bomb, the destructive nature of mankind. That science needs to be restrained. When I first watched the movie, I was way too young to be watching it, but as a kid growing up in post 9/11 America, it really represented a lot of the fears that I had. I didn't understand why I was afraid, but I was afraid of things. I was afraid, and this movie really represented a lot of that. I was even afraid of my socks at one point because I thought they would turn into the thing. So, yeah. I think that what's great about this movie is that, like, different people could read into it in different ways. Okay, so hear me out. Monsters have always been coded as people who live along the margins. People of color, women, or even LGBTQ people have been suggested to be these monsters, Frankenstein, King Kong, or even some that literally being a stand-in for women, the 50-foot tall woman. And that's why a lot of people have felt like people of color and people along the margins have felt like really represented by these monsters. They feel their fears and their anxieties by, putting themselves in the shoes of those monsters. And there's actually a really good Lindsay Ellis video about it. I'll link up there or down in the description. You should totally check it out. I won't get too much into it, but that's the idea that subsits a lot of this. Also, additionally, in the year 1982, that the AIDS epidemic was just starting, and it was definitely something that Carpenter was looking into, that was on his mind when making this film. Even though, like, it might not have been his intention to make it that, Carpenter himself says the movie is a blank slate, and movies can be interpreted however you want it to be. That's the great thing about art, that people bring their own baggage to it. They bring their own life experiences, and they see different things in it. That's why when I was rewatching the film recently, I felt more represented by the monster. It felt like, just trying to hide who you truly are is something really, an idea that the thing just wants to survive. And, it's like this great miscommunication, and that sometimes you do feel when you don't have a great self-esteem of yourself, that who you truly are is this really horrifying Cronenbergian monster type thing. And that's something that that was really surprising reading that I felt when I was watching this. The AIDS epidemic theory is bolstered by the fact that it is an all-male cast. These men don't have any reason to pretend to be anything that they're not, yet you still feel this standoffishness even before the thing arrives, that there's divisions amongst these groups between the scientists and the blue-collar folks. There's divisions even between, like, McCready and everybody else. He's an outsider, feeling like an outsider in society. That's pretty much what I felt a lot, and a lot of other people felt.
I feel like a lot of people put this movie up on the wrong pedestal. It is a really good movie. There's a lot of readings that you could do of it, and you don't really see that a lot of readings of it. There's a lot of readings of it being a post-Vietnam movie that definitely you see this like anti-authoritarianism in it, with definitely the only authority figure in the movie. He's undermined at every point in the movie that he ever tries to assert his power. He eventually actually even gives up power to MacReady, this outsider. It's an ensemble cast, but MacReady reluctantly comes to power. He becomes the leader, not because he wants to. He's a reluctant leader. Just because he's the only one he trusts. He doesn't trust anybody else. And not everyone trusts him, really. And that's this distrust of authority figure, this assumed authority figure, is really interesting, I think. When you boil it down, it is a slasher movie with a monster, but I think that it is a lot quieter than a lot of other movies. I rewatched this on Blu-ray, and I had less appreciation for the practical effects. They're still really good. On Blu-ray, that higher fidelity, you could see more of where the cracks are. You could tell, oh, that's a prop, that's a puppet, that's how they made that. There's somebody underneath the floorboards manipulating all that. But something I didn't really expect in watching this is that the set design is so really good, and there's a lot of quiet scenes, and it feels really like these people are being watched by this other entity. You truly don't know who's doing what. A lot of these people are in parkas. You can't tell who goes there. And it really gets at that theme, that distrust. You don't know who's doing what at what time. And it really becomes kind of a Agatha Christie novel, and you could try to connect the dots, but it won't fully connect because that's not really the point. Another thing that I noticed also is that the lighting in this movie is so amazing. There's a lot of great blues that makes the Antarctic snow feel very cold and isolating. Snow being a really big symbol for isolation. You see it in the Fortress of Solitude or on Hoth. I think it's a really good movie. I'm really jealous of people who get to see it for the first time again. Between the Thing video game in 1982's The Thing, there were Thing comics in the 90s, and they were very much 90s comics. I didn't really get to fully read them, but I did read pieces of it, and this was a bad idea. I don't know. Like, too much exposure to an idea, it really feels like, hey, a comic that is coming after a very popular franchise. Also, the comics are canon as well, so at least for the first series that came out that follows MacReady after the events of the 1982 movie, then the second series of comics is, what if the Thing was in Argentina? Brazil? I don't remember. It's been a while since I read it. But, so yeah, they find MacReady, and they bring him, and then he's all like, oh fuck, the Thing is loose again. And then there was one that I was reading that was really interested in, because the idea is that the Thing is loose in this fishing village. I didn't get to read through and see where it ended up, but a lot of these do feel more slashery and more genre tropey than actually 1982's Thing tries to escape. The Thing video game is very interesting. It's probably the most early 2000s a game I've ever played from the early 2000s. I kind of love this game and hate it at the same time. I love it because it's a Thing video game, and so you could give blood tests to people and test them whenever they join your group to make sure that they're not a Thing. It really feels like you're engaging with mechanics. You're not engaging with this organic idea. It's very scripted. The more organic moments for me is like when you're low on health and you're by yourself. All the people that you had are dead, and so you go through very slowly, and you're worried when a monster is going to pop out. The biggest problem that I have with this game is that there's way too many monsters in this game, and it goes to that place that most games from the early 2000s go. Spoilers for the Thing video game is that turns out that there's a secret organization that is actually harvesting the Thing and, planning to use it for super soldiers. And, you're like, what? No. I mean, I'm going to take it on face value and be like, oh, this was genuinely an idea that they wanted to make. Instead of just making more enemies for the game, it does start to become a tactical third-person shooter, but a not good one, not like Rainbow Six or Ghost Recon, because there is an auto-aim, and it really doesn't really feel like It was made for that. The enemies hit really hard when they shoot you with hit scan weapons, and it feels unfair at times, especially since the save points are so far apart. They are physical save points, and whenever you die, you either have to restart the whole level, or if you saved at the save point, you want to go back to the main menu and load from there. And it made it really frustrating to die, but it also made it really tense that I didn't want to die. But I feel like I became more frustrated with the game than actually enjoying it. The AI is very frustrating. It's very early 2000s AI, so they get stuck in doorways. They are really annoying. The animations are really wonky. It really feels like you're interacting with AI and not people, which really breaks the immersion of the game. Throughout playing this game, I kept thinking to myself, man, I wish they held off on making this game. I wish that they made it in the PS3 era or the PS4 era. This game made now would be a lot better. I just didn't really expect this game to be what it is, because I didn't expect it to have an actual plot. I didn't expect it to go like, holy shit, you go to a military base and you shoot up a military base and you have to like blow up planes and you what? The only times I was scared was when I was by myself, but a lot of times you are with your own teammates and you could just mow down a bunch of these enemies, and there's only like 3 or 4 enemy types. The difference between the movie The Thing and the video game The Thing is, the movie The Thing, each time you saw the thing, it looked different. But the video game, you see the same models over and over and over again. It sounds like I'm really digging on this game, and I really hate it. But I do have to give it props that if the save system wasn't so shitty, I would enjoy this game a lot more. I would be praising it a lot more and looking over a lot of its flaws. But I did have to spend a lot of time with it, and it was very annoying. I still do recommend it. I didn't find it on any digital stores, so it's really hard to find a copy. I was lucky to find it at a local retailer, so I bought a PS2 version of it, and it works pretty well, for that matter.
2002's The Thing video game has no involvement from John Carpenter himself, yet it's considered part of the 1982's canon by Carpenter himself. Also, he has a cameo in it. Also, there's a quote from him in the back of the box. "This one is one intense action / horror game. You gotta play this one, man. It'll blast you against the wall." Which sounds like one of the most John Carpenter quotes ever about a video game. Though, like, whenever someone says a slash, nobody says slashes. Like, that's not a thing. I mean, I guess maybe John Carpenter, because he knows his slashes. He created the slasher genre, so maybe. This game really wants you to think that you're playing 1982, like a video game version of the 1982's The Thing, which it sadly isn't. Doesn't mean it's not a good game, but still, it's 1982's The Thing. It ain't. Okay. 2011's The Thing, not to be confused with. Not to be confused with. Nope. Not to be confused with 1951's The Thing. Not to be confused with 1982's The Thing. Not to be confused with The Thing video game. Not to be confused with 2011's The Thing. Yes, 2011's The Thing. It's a prequel. What?
They really wanted it to be different. You could see a lot of craft and a lot of care went into this. They wanted to distinguish it from the original and make their own thing by making it a prequel. But a lot of the scenes in the movie really feels like rip-offs of the original. They wanted to do riffs on the original. It was made by a first-time director. I think the direction is actually fine in this movie. I think the movie looks beautiful in motion. I watched it on Blu-ray. They use anamorphic lenses so that it felt like it was shot like a 1982 movie. Another really great thing is that they worked really hard with Norwegian actors because they wanted to feel authentic. The aspect of actually trying to figure out how everything happened is a really good idea. Whenever you answer a lot of questions posed
in other media, you always have to replace that with more questions. And just answering all the questions without replacing them with more just makes it unsatisfying. I'm making this sound like I really don't dig this movie, but I like it. I'm not going to say that it is a great movie. I say it's good, it's serviceable, it works, the ending is terrible. When this movie was first announced and when it was first coming out, a lot of people got pissed off at this movie for having a lady in this cast, citing that what made the original movie so special was that it had an all-male cast. But I do think that, it does lose something, that all-male reading of, like, toxic masculinity that you could say. There is another reading of this that I think that adding a lady in it does make it a little bit more interesting. Throughout the whole movie, Kate is undermined by men. It is implied that the only reason that she's even there is to just verify what they're doing and actually not go against anything they're saying.
So, you've got it all taken care of. I don't think you really need me.
You're not here to think. You're here to get the thing safely out of the ice.
She objects several times to their methods. Whenever she points out, hey, we should be really worried about this thing, everybody just like shrugs her off. Yeah, that's another hot take for you. 2011's The Thing is about how men don't believe women. I like this movie. It does subvert your expectations several times. Like, I really like this movie's version of the blood test scene. Nobody comes out as the Thing, and I think it subverts your expectation that way. A lot of the deaths feel really horrifying. A lot of the monsters, different from the original. They do things that you couldn't do with the original. But here's where I get to another idea of like practical versus CG. There's nothing really wrong with CG in general. The only thing that's bad with CG is bad CG. And the problem is that when there's bad CG, it really stands out. Rocket Jump has a really good video about this that goes more into it. This movie has a mix of that. It's been well documented that this movie went through a lot of production problems. They only had 3 months to prepare, and it really feels like that, which is why it feels very rote and treaded upon. If they had more time, they would have been more original, I feel. Well, they made the movie with practical effects, and they were planning to buff it up with CG, which is a noble idea. The original had practical effects. If people just want only practical effects, they could just watch the 1982 version. If you want to see monsters and monster designs that you could only do with computer-generated idea, then, well, yeah, dude, watch this version. The problem is that when they showed it to the executives, they thought that people wouldn't be scared of the practical effects, that, CG is the new thing. We should replace the old ones with CG. And they replaced the ending, actually. You were supposed to be on the alien spaceship, and a lot of the problems I cite, that it would have replaced a lot of the questions with new questions. It turns out that the Thing is just an alien specimen, actually, and there was another version of 1982's Thing on this alien spaceship. You see a lot of dead bodies of other alien beings on this spaceship, and the pilot being one of them. So, like, it really gets back to that Lovecraftian horror, that we're just tiny specks in this universe, that there's bigger ideas, bigger things out there, and it was just a pet, and it killed everything on that spaceship, and that's, like, really horrifying. That if this was just a thing, what are the people who made that spaceship like? What are each of those other aliens like? Are those able to kill us? I just really wish that the filmmakers got to make the movies that they wanted to make, but unfortunately they weren't able to, and that's really sad. Yeah, so like 2011's Thing, it's just like a lot of the other remakes that came out around that time. The Thing is always going to be a very ever-enduring part of American cinema, of American media. Somebody's always going to retell it because people feel like it's a story worth telling, that it is us that we shouldn't be trusting. The different versions of The Thing shows the different types of philosophies of horror. This cosmic horror, that this idea that we are smaller than we actually think we are. All these progresses in science that we've been making in the 1930s, 1920s, we are ultimately the smallest being. 1951's The Thing, it takes this idea and makes the other the horror. It's that idea of right-wing horror, the Thing, King Kong, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, they're all other beings. There's a clear enemy that is needing to be destroyed. And those have always been coded as colored people along the margins, LGBTQ people. And John Carpenter's version, it's that left-wing horror, that idea that we are truly the monsters, we are the ones we should be fearing, that we put on this mask of sanity so that we can fit in with everybody else. And other versions don't really do as much with the idea as those three versions. I think for the prequel tries really hard to, but it never really got the time and the effort behind it that it should have to make it a wholly original, wholly worthwhile endeavor. Every adaptation of The Thing is an imitation of a different version of The Thing. The Thing is the thing of itself. It's a replication. At the end of the day, we are all afraid. It's what we do with that fear that really defines us. Well, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. Also, I want to point out that if you're looking for The Thing comics, you always come up with the Marvel Thing. Or like, it's really hard to find. If you're looking for vice versa, if you're looking for The Thing from the Fantastic Four, you tend to get 1982's The Thing, and it's like so frustrating.